I want to start off with a question. Have you ever started a health plan on a Monday? You felt incredibly motivated, you were elated to start. And by Thursday, you thought, man, why does this feel impossible to keep up with? Or having that internal thought of, can I keep this going? If that's ever happened to you, you are not alone. But here's the important part. Most people assume the problem is discipline. It usually isn't. Most health efforts fail because they aren't built to survive real life. And real life always shows up. Work gets busy, schedules start to shift, sleep gets thrown off some way or another, stress starts to slowly creep in, and suddenly the plan that felt exciting 2 weeks ago becomes impossible to maintain. And that's not a motivation problem, that's a structure problem. So, peace, love, light, and healing. My name is Neriah, and I help bridge the gap between healthcare and fitness. This month, we're talking about something different. The theme for the month of March is build what lasts. Because temporary effort produces temporary results, but structure compounds. When something is built correctly, it keeps working even when life gets messy. I see this a lot with a lot of the men and women folk that I work with. These are capable people. They've built careers, they've raised families, they've handled more responsibility than most people have. And so discipline is not their problem. But they've tried programs that were never designed for their stage of life. Workouts that were maybe too aggressive, plans that really ignored old injuries, really fitness advice that's really built for like 25-year-olds instead of people who are thinking about longevity. And when those programs didn't work, they wanted to quit and they blamed themselves. But the truth is the structure is what failed them. Research consistently shows something very interesting. Long-term adherence, not intensity, is the biggest predicator of health outcomes. And so, in other words, the plan you can consistently follow for years will outperform the plan you only sustain for a few weeks. That's why I'm not real big on those 28-day challenges and things like that. Because our culture it celebrates intensity, having harder workouts, stricter diets, more extreme challenges. Those things can work for short bursts, but they rarely last. I often say if it's too fast, then it won't last, and that can be taken in all aspects of life. And so let me tell you, often the stories that I see, have someone who comes in, they're frustrated because they feel like they keep falling off track. And so they start strong, but then guess what? Life gets busy. The plan starts to collapse. So they assume they need to push harder. They need to go to do harder workouts. And that's not always the answer. Sometimes the answer is building something simpler, something sustainable, something that works even during a busy week. Because health lasts that that lasts a few weeks, it isn't perfect. That's not normal. And so you really want to focus on things that are going to improve your longevity. At my company, Iron City Biomechanics, we think about health differently. Instead of asking, how hard can we push today? We flip it around and we ask questions like, what kind of structure will still work for this individual 10 years from now? So movement patterns that, strength that really supports that person's independence, and consistency instead of intensity. Because the real goal of health isn't just about looking fit. It's really preserving your freedom to travel, freedom to move confidently, freedom to live without constant pain or limitations. And so, we start with this series this month with the question asking, how can we improve your longevity? Is your current health plan built for 5 weeks or 5 years? Because the things that last are usually quieter and they're boring, less dramatic, but they're far more powerful. If this resonates with you, I wrote a full blog breaking down this in more detail at our website. You can read it at ironcitybiomechanics.com. And if you're unsure where to start building something sustainable for your health, we begin with something simple called a no sweat intro. It's just a conversation where we look at your goals, we break down how your body moves and what kind of plan actually makes sense for you long term. It's no pressure, no sales pitch. It's just clarity, because temporary effort fades, but structure always compounds. So let's build something that lasts. As always, peace, love, light, and healing.